George Washington served 1789 to 1797. No political party. George Washington was the first president of the United States. He was voted into office by a unanimous vote agreed by all. Washington has been the only president chosen for office by 100% of the electors. Washington didn't know how a president should act, yet he did become a role model for all future presidents. Washington's fairness, leadership, gentle nature, and ability to compromise all benefited our country. These traits helped not only during war and peace, but also with independence and growth. He helped make the U.S. the respected and successful country it is today. John Adams served 1797 to 1801. Federalist. John Adams was an important figure in U.S. history. Adams was elected as George Washington's vice president for 2 terms in office. He served a term as the second president of the United States. He tried again, but lost a second election in 1800. After that, John and his wife, Abigail, returned to life in Massachusetts. They focused on their family and friends. John enjoyed working on his autobiography. Abigail died of typhoid fever in 1818. John lived long enough to see his son, John Quincy Adams, elected as the 6th U.S. president. John died in 1826 at the age of 91. It was fitting that he died on July 4th. Franklin D. Roosevelt served 1933 to 1945. Democrat. As president, Franklin D. Roosevelt faced many challenges. One was finding a way to bring the country out of the Great Depression. He developed programs that would help the poor and create jobs that would change America. People all over the nation started feeling hopeful. They had confidence that President Roosevelt was leading the country in the right direction. They approved of his work so much they elected him president 4 times. He is the only U.S. president to serve more than 2 terms. The 22nd Amendment to the Constitution now limits a president to 2 terms. In one famous speech, Roosevelt told Americans, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Roosevelt certainly believed this, and he lived in a way that was proof that the statement was true in his own life. John F. Kennedy served 1961 to 1963. Democrat. John F. Kennedy became the youngest man ever to be elected President of the United States. He was only 43 years old. He was born in Brookline, Massachusetts in 1917. John joined the Navy after graduating from Harvard University. He served as a sailor during World War II. Then he returned home to Boston, where he was elected to the U.S. Senate. John F. Kennedy became President of the United States in 1961. At his inauguration, President Kennedy gave an important speech asking all Americans to join together to serve their country. While he was president, he worked for equal rights for all Americans and had to solve a nuclear weapons crisis in Cuba. On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy was riding in a convertible through the streets of Dallas, Texas. A gunman shot the president in the head. He was the youngest president ever to die while in office. Ronald Reagan served 1981 to 1989. Republican. Ronald Wilson Reagan grew up in a very poor family in Illinois. After high school, he worked his way through Eureka College. There, he studied economics and sociology. Reagan also played on the school's football team and acted in school plays. After graduation, he worked as a radio sports announcer. In the middle of the Great Depression, Reagan decided to take a chance on a new career. He went to Hollywood to try his hand at acting. Over the next 20 years, Ronald Reagan became one of the most respected actors of his time. Reagan became involved with the Actors Union in Hollywood. He even became president of the group. In the 1960s, Reagan's ideas about what the government could do for the country changed. He switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. Reagan was an excellent speaker. He was also very likable. The people of California elected him governor of the state twice. Soon, people all over the nation began to talk about the confident California governor with the great ideas and patriotic outlook. In 1980, voters chose Ronald Reagan to represent his party in the race for President of the United States. Reagan was elected as the 40th President of the United States with the hope he would improve the country. Reagan spent 2 terms, 8 years, in office. He was the oldest person ever elected to the job. Barack Obama served 2009 to 2017. Democrat. On November 4, 2008, the country held its 56th presidential election. Barack Obama was a senator from Illinois. He ran for president against John McCain, a senator from Arizona. On election night, Senator Barack Obama made history when he became the first African American ever to be elected president of the United States. Many Americans cheered Obama's great victory. In the early decades of the century, African Americans had a difficult time trying to vote. The 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution had been ratified in 1870. It gave citizens of all races the legal right to vote. However, African Americans had not always been treated fairly. Nearly 150 years later, an African American man stood proudly as the head of the executive branch of the United States of America. In 2009, Obama was awarded one of the world's highest honors, the Nobel Peace Prize. The committee chose him because of his efforts to improve relationships between the many different peoples and countries of the world. Donald J. Trump served 2017 to Republican. Donald Trump is a very successful businessman. He won the presidency of the United States in 2016. It was the first time he ever run for any political office. Trump is a graduate of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Finance. He followed his father into the world of real estate development. New York was home to many of his developments. He also opened and operated developments throughout the world. He has been an author and reality television star. Trump won with the promise of lower taxes, a commitment to rebuilding the country, an improved regulatory environment, and better trade deals. To communicate to supporters and later to the country, Trump is the first president to communicate his ideas and policies directly to the people using social media.